Chris Anderson supervised the orbital construction platforms around Kepler Station as refugee populations from 12 different species worked alongside human engineers to build new homes. 6 months after humanity's emergence, the galaxy had reorganized itself around the reality of human planet ships, and the results were more dramatic than even the most optimistic human planners had predicted. The mobile worlds had become centers of technological development and cultural exchange, attracting the best minds from across the galaxy to participate in projects that would have been impossible under the old system. Laura Mitchell led the technology, sharing initiatives that were gradually transforming galactic civilization. The gravitational engineering techniques that made planet ships possible were being adapted to create mobile asteroid cities and defensive platforms for species that had allied themselves with humanity. Within months, the Altarian Federation had constructed 3 asteroid fortresses that could defend their core systems, while the peaceful Meridian Collective was building mobile research stations that would revolutionize their scientific capabilities. Paul Davis coordinated the final confrontation with the Korthan Empire's core fleet at their homeworld, but the engagement was unlike anything in military history. Rather than attacking the planet directly, 3 human planet ships positioned themselves at strategic points around the Korthan system and simply waited. The psychological impact of having artificial worlds capable of ending their civilization hovering nearby was more effective than any conventional bombardment could have been. The Korthan surrender came not through military defeat, but through the complete collapse of their will to fight. Their military commanders calculated that resistance was meaningless when the enemy could destroy planets at will, while their civilian populations demanded immediate negotiations to prevent their extinction. The empire that had conquered dozens of star systems through brutal force found itself helpless against opponents who had redefined what military power meant. Janet Brooks oversaw the transformation of former Korthan military installations into peaceful research stations and refugee processing centers. The planet ship's manufacturing capabilities made it possible to convert weapons facilities into hospitals and schools in a matter of weeks. Former Korthan soldiers found themselves working alongside human engineers to build infrastructure for the species their empire had oppressed, creating bonds of cooperation that would make future conflicts impossible. Chris established diplomatic protocols for the dozens of species that were requesting permanent residence aboard human planet ships. The mobile worlds had become the safest places in the galaxy, protected by weapons that no conventional force could threaten and supplied by manufacturing systems that could provide anything their populations needed. Entire species were abandoning their traditional homeworlds to join human communities that offered security and opportunity beyond anything they had known. Laura demonstrated the educational benefits of human technology by opening the planet ship's research facilities to alien scientists and engineers. Knowledge that had taken humanity centuries to develop was being shared freely with species that chose cooperation over conquest. The result was an explosion of technological development that promised to solve problems that had plagued galactic civilization for millennia, from resource scarcity to environmental degradation. Paul coordinated the peacekeeping operations that were ending conflicts across the galaxy without firing a shot. The mere threat of human intervention was enough to stop aggressive species from attacking their neighbors, while the promise of human protection encouraged peaceful species to resist demands for tribute or territorial concessions. Wars that had raged for centuries were ending because one side could call upon allies with planet-sized weapons. The economic transformation was even more dramatic than the military changes. Janet's manufacturing systems could produce goods on a scale that made traditional interstellar trade obsolete, while human resource extraction techniques could harvest entire solar systems without environmental damage. Species that joined human alliances gained access to abundance that eliminated the scarcity-based conflicts that had driven most galactic wars. Chris oversaw the cultural exchange programs that were creating new forms of art and entertainment that combined human and alien traditions. The planet ships had become centers of creativity, where species that had been enemies for centuries worked together to create music, literature, and visual arts that reflected their shared hopes for a peaceful future. These collaborations were building bonds between species that would make future conflicts unthinkable. Laura established the research networks that connected human facilities with alien institutions across the galaxy. Problems that had stumped individual species for generations were being solved through collaborative efforts that drew upon the knowledge and perspectives of dozens of different civilizations. Medical breakthroughs were extending lifespans for species that had faced extinction, while technological innovations were opening possibilities that none of them could have achieved alone. Paul demonstrated the ultimate effectiveness of human peacekeeping when the Zephyrian Empire attempted to restart their expansion campaigns. A single planet ship appeared in their core system and requested immediate cessation of all military activities. When the Zephyrians initially refused, the planet ship used gravitational manipulation to relocate their entire military fleet to a storage orbit where the ships could be retrieved after their government reconsidered its position. The transformation was complete when former enemies began volunteering to serve aboard human planet ships as crew members and researchers. Corthan. Engineers worked alongside Altarian scientists under human supervision, developing technologies that benefited all three species. The artificial barriers that had divided the galaxy into competing empires were dissolving as species discovered that cooperation produced better results than conquest. Janet coordinated the expansion projects that would eventually produce 50 planet ships, each one specialized for different aspects of galactic civilization. Some would be dedicated to scientific research, others to cultural preservation, and still others to environmental restoration of worlds damaged by previous wars. The human vision of mobile civilizations was becoming reality on a scale that would reshape the galaxy for millennia to come. Chris established the governmental structures that would manage the new galactic order. Rather than imposing human rule on other species, the planet ships served as neutral meeting grounds where representatives could negotiate solutions to interstellar problems. The mobile worlds provided the security and resources necessary for peaceful diplomacy while demonstrating that cooperation was more profitable than conflict. The galaxy learned that humanity's greatest achievement was not their planet-sized warships, but their patience and determination to fundamentally reimagine what civilization could become. While other species had focused on incremental improvements to existing systems, humans had spent centuries asking completely different questions about the nature of survival and prosperity in space. The answers they developed changed everything, creating a future where the greatest weapons became tools for building peace rather than waging war. The species that had once dismissed humanity as primitive and irrelevant now competed to host human planet ships in their territories, knowing that these mobile worlds brought prosperity, security, and opportunities that no traditional civilization could match. The galaxy had discovered that the quiet refugees who fled to the Outer Rim 3 centuries ago had become the most advanced civilization in known space, and they were using that advancement to benefit everyone who chose cooperation over conquest. Kyle Roberts arrived at the Galactic Council chambers aboard a diplomatic shuttle that had been launched from Terra's Fist, which was positioned just outside the Nexus Prime System's gravity well. The sight of the planet ship hanging in space, like a second moon, had already caused panic among the civilian population and emergency sessions among the council representatives. Kyle's shuttle docked with the main station while his homeworld waited nearby, a not-so-subtle reminder of humanity's new position in galactic politics. The council chamber erupted in chaos as Kyle entered and took his place at the previously empty human delegation seat. Representatives from dozens of species were shouting over each other in multiple languages, demanding explanations for how humanity had developed weapons that challenged everything they thought they knew about physics and engineering. The Zephyrian ambassador was insisting that the planet ships violated fundamental laws of physics, while the Corthan representative was demanding immediate military action against what he called an existential threat to galactic civilization. Sandra. Lee activated the holographic display system and began presenting technical specifications that made alien military analysts question their understanding of reality. The gravitational scaffolding that allowed humans to hollow out planets without structural collapse required mathematics that pushed the boundaries of what most species considered possible. The artificial stars that powered each planet ship generated more energy than most galactic civilizations used in a century, yet they were contained within planetary cores using technologies that alien scientists were still trying to comprehend. Greg. Thompson commanded Guardian's Rest as it demonstrated human defensive capabilities by allowing coordinated attacks from 3 different alien fleets that had gathered to test human claims. The Altarian Defense Force, the Meridian Corporate Navy, and a collection of independent mercenary groups fired their most powerful weapons at the planet ship for over an hour. The planetary shields absorbed energy strikes that should have cracked continents and kinetic projectiles that should have created new craters visible from space. The economic implications began to dawn on galactic leaders as Helen Parker presented humanity's new position in interstellar commerce. The planet ships were completely self-sufficient, containing entire ecosystems, manufacturing centers, and research facilities that made humanity independent of all external trade. More importantly, the mobile planets could travel to resource-rich systems and strip mine entire asteroid belts in a matter of days, giving humans access to raw materials on a scale that dwarfed the output of most galactic civilizations. Kyle delivered humanity's demands with the calm confidence of someone who knew his species now held all the advantages. The old system of galactic politics, where stronger species conquered weaker ones with the tacit approval of the Council, would end immediately. Humanity would offer protection services to any species that requested them, and they would enforce peace treaties with the full power of their planet ship fleet. The age of galactic empires built on conquest and exploitation was over. Sandra demonstrated the planet ship's manufacturing capabilities by showing real-time footage of Guardian's Rest producing a complete space station in less than 6 hours. The mobile factories built into the planet's core could create anything from individual tools to massive starships using raw materials processed from space debris and asteroids. This meant that humanity could support allied species with technology and infrastructure on a scale that traditional galactic powers could never match. Greg coordinated the retaliation demonstration that would show alien military leaders exactly what they were dealing with. Rather than destroying the ships that had attacked Guardian's Rest, the planet ship moved directly into their formation and used gravitational manipulation to disable their weapons and engines without harming a single crew member. The aliens found themselves completely helpless, unable to move or fight, while remaining perfectly safe inside their vessels. The psychological warfare aspect was working even better than human planners had hoped. Intelligence reports showed that several minor species were already requesting human protection from their traditional oppressors, while major powers were recalling their fleets from aggressive campaigns to defend their core territories. The mere existence of the planet ships had shifted the balance of power so dramatically that wars were ending simply because no one wanted to attract human attention. Helen outlined the new economic relationships that humanity was prepared to offer. Species that chose cooperation over conquest would gain access to human technology, protection, and resources. Those that continued aggressive expansion would find themselves facing the combined might of humanity and all their allied species. The choice was simple, but the consequences of choosing wrongly would be immediate and overwhelming. Kyle watched as the Corthan representative attempted to rally support for a military alliance against humanity, only to find that most other species were already calculating how to benefit from the new order rather than resist it. The mathematics of galactic politics had changed overnight, and traditional military powers were discovering that their fleets were now obsolete artifacts from a previous era of warfare. Sandra presented the most shocking revelation of all. The 7 planet ships were only the beginning of human expansion into planetary-scale engineering. Intelligence reports from human space showed construction projects that would eventually produce dozens of mobile worlds, each one specialized for different functions. Some would be research stations, others would be manufacturing centers, and still others would be mobile habitats for species that needed human protection. Greg demonstrated the planet ship's ability to support allied species by deploying construction teams to repair battle damage on the alien vessels that had attacked Guardian's Rest. Human technology could restore damaged ships to better than new condition in a matter of hours, using techniques that alien engineers were still trying to understand. This generosity after being attacked sent a clear message about human intentions and capabilities. The session concluded with Kyle issuing formal invitations for alien representatives to visit the planet ships and see human technology firsthand. Any species that was genuinely interested in peace and cooperation would be welcome to establish diplomatic relations and explore mutually beneficial arrangements. Those that chose continued aggression would face the consequences of their decisions when humanity decided that patience was no longer appropriate. Helen distributed economic projections that showed how the galaxy would benefit from human leadership. In interstellar affairs, traditional resource scarcity would become meaningless when mobile planets could harvest entire star systems. Technological development would accelerate dramatically when human research facilities began sharing their discoveries. Most importantly, the constant threat of military conquest would disappear when humanity's planet ships made aggressive warfare impossible for any rational species to consider. The Galactic Council session ended with most representatives requesting immediate private meetings with the human delegation. The old order was crumbling in real time as species rushed to position themselves advantageously in the new reality that humanity had created. Within hours, formal requests for human protection and alliance were flooding communication networks, while traditional galactic powers found themselves isolated and increasingly irrelevant in a universe where planet-sized weapons had made conventional military force obsolete. Steve Parker positioned Terra's Fist and Iron Bastion at the edge of the Centauri gate system, their massive forms blocking out entire constellations as they moved into combat formation. The Corthan Empire's assembled fleet spread across space, like a metallic cloud, 12,000 ships arranged in attack patterns that had conquered dozens of star systems. Admiral Thexkar commanded from his flagship, a massive dreadnought that was considered one of the most powerful ships in the galaxy. He was about to learn how small that ship really was. Rachel Brooks activated the surface-to-space artillery networks from her control center buried inside Terra's Fist. Weapon emplacements the size of cities began rising from what had appeared to be natural mountain ranges and rocky plains. The targeting computers locked onto the Corthan fleet with precision that made their evasive maneuvers pointless. When the first salvo fired, it created light shows that could be seen from neighboring star systems, streams of energy and projectiles that turned space into a battlefield unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. Danny Walsh led the first fighter wing deployment from Iron Bastion's primary launch bay, a converted ocean basin that stretched across half a continent. His squadron alone numbered more ships than most alien fleets, and behind him came wave after wave of fighters that filled local space like a metallic storm. Each pilot was connected to the planet ship's sensor networks, giving them targeting, information and tactical awareness that made them almost impossible to defeat in individual combat. The Corthan shields, designed to withstand the most powerful conventional weapons in the galaxy, simply evaporated under the concentrated firepower of an entire planet's worth of armaments. Ships that had survived battles against entire alien fleets were reduced to debris in seconds. Admiral Thexkar watched his tactical displays in disbelief as human weapons tore through his formations with an efficiency that violated everything he thought he knew about space combat. Nicole Clark monitored the battle from Prometheus Rising, analyzing Corthan responses and adjusting human tactics in real time. The aliens were trying to adapt to fighting planet-sized opponents, but their strategies were based on centuries of conventional fleet warfare. They kept attempting to outmaneuver the planet ships, not understanding that weapons built into planetary surfaces could track and engage targets across volumes of space that no normal ship could cover. The demonstration of human mobility capabilities came when Iron Bastion performed a combat maneuver that redefined what it meant to be a weapons platform. The planet ship spun on its axis, while maintaining perfect firing solutions on enemy targets, using its rotation to bring fresh weapon batteries to bear, while damaged systems cycled offline for repairs. The sight of an entire world performing precision maneuvers in space while continuing to fight broke the morale of half the Corthan fleet. Steve coordinated with the other planet ship commanders as they began the second phase of the demonstration. Rather than simply destroying the Corthan fleet, they would show the galaxy that human weapons could be used with surgical precision. Terra's Fist targeted only the weapon systems of enemy ships, leaving their life support and engines intact. The message was clear. Humanity could choose whether their opponents lived or died, and that choice would be based on whether those opponents chose cooperation or continued aggression. Rachel watched as Corthan fighters attempted desperate attack, runs against Terra's Fist's surface defenses. The point defense systems built into the planet's crust tracked thousands of individual targets simultaneously, creating protective barriers of energy that no small craft could penetrate. The few fighters that managed to reach the surface found themselves attacking weapons emplacements that were larger than their entire squadrons and protected by armor that could withstand planetary bombardment. Danny led his fighters in pursuit of retreating Corthan squadrons, but his orders were to disable rather than destroy. Human fighter tactics emphasized precision over destruction, using advanced targeting systems to surgically remove enemy weapons while leaving pilots alive to spread word of human capabilities. Every surviving alien pilot would return to their fleets with stories of human technology that their commanders would struggle to believe. The psychological impact of the battle extended far beyond the immediate combat zone. Nicole's intelligence. Networks detected emergency communications across dozens of star systems as alien governments tried to process what they were seeing. The technical specifications of human planet ships were being analyzed by every major power. But the conclusions they reached challenged fundamental assumptions about what was possible in warfare and engineering. Admiral Thekskar attempted to negotiate a withdrawal, broadcasting on open channels that would be monitored by intelligence services across the galaxy. Steve's response was to have Iron Bastion demonstrate its defensive capabilities by moving directly into the center of the remaining Corthan fleet and simply absorbing their combined firepower. The planet's shields, powered by an artificial star, turned the most powerful weapons in the Corthan arsenal into light shows that barely registered on human sensor networks. The final demonstration came when Terra's Fist extended massive mechanical limbs from concealed bays in its surface. Limbs designed for planetary-scale construction and combat engineering. These appendages were larger than most space stations and moved with precision that allowed them to carefully dismantle Corthan ships without harming their crews. The sight of a planet reaching out to physically handle enemy vessels like toys completed the psychological destruction of Corthan resistance. Rachel coordinated the cleanup phase as human recovery teams moved to rescue Corthan survivors and provide medical assistance to the wounded. This was perhaps the most important part of the demonstration, showing that humanity's overwhelming military superiority would be used to protect rather than conquer. The planet ships had medical facilities that could treat injured aliens with technologies that were centuries ahead of standard galactic medicine. Danny led the escort squadrons that guided damaged Corthan ships to safe harbor, ensuring that every survivor would return home with first-hand knowledge of human capabilities and intentions. The stories they told would spread throughout the Corthan Empire and beyond, carrying the message that humanity had returned to the galaxy not as conquerors, but as protectors of those who chose peace over aggression. Nicole compiled the battle data for transmission to every major power in the galaxy. The complete technical readouts of human capabilities would be shared freely, ensuring that no government could claim ignorance of what humanity had become. The message was simple. Aggressive expansion and conquest of peaceful species would no longer be tolerated, and humanity now had the power to enforce that prohibition anywhere in the galaxy. The Battle of Centauri Gate lasted only 6 hours, but its consequences would reshape galactic politics for centuries to come. In one engagement, humanity had demonstrated that they possessed technology and capabilities that made them the dominant military force in known space. More importantly, they had shown that this power would be used responsibly, to protect the weak rather than exploit them. The galaxy would never be the same. Kate Sullivan stood in the command center of Terra's Fist as the activation codes came through the quantum communication array. After 300 years of waiting, Operation Planetary Wrath was finally beginning. Around her, thousands of officers, who had trained their entire lives for this moment, began bringing the planet ship to full combat readiness. The artificial star at the planet's core pulsed brighter as massive engines that had been dormant for decades roared to life. Ben Foster felt the deck beneath his feet vibrate as New Olympus began moving for the first time since its construction was completed. The planet ship was the size of Earth's moon, but it moved through space with the grace of a normal starship. Around him, 50 million humans went about their daily lives in the underground cities, most of them unaware that their entire world was now traveling toward the galactic core at speeds that defied everything alien scientists thought they knew about celestial mechanics. The 7 planet ships had been positioned in different star systems across the outer rim, each one appearing to be nothing more than a dead world orbiting a distant star. Now they were converging on the same destination, their gravitational signatures creating ripples in space-time that could be detected from hundreds of light-years away. Every major power in the galaxy was about to learn that humanity had not vanished. They had simply been building weapons that no one else had imagined possible. Amy Rodriguez monitored the planetary combat systems from her laboratory deep inside Guardian's Rest. The weapons arrays built into the planet's surface were coming online one by one, each system more powerful than the entire fleet of most galactic nations. The main cannon alone could fire projectiles the size of skyscrapers, at velocities that would punch through the core of a normal planet. When all systems were active, each planet ship would have firepower measured not in megatons but in the ability to reshape continents. The first alien contact came when a Zephyrian science vessel detected the gravitational anomalies created by the moving planets. Captain Tony Miller opened a communication channel from Terra's Fist and delivered the message that humanity had been preparing for 3 centuries. The ultimatum was simple and direct. All aggressive military actions against peaceful species would cease immediately, or humanity would demonstrate why they had been building weapons in secret for so long. The Zephyrian captain's response was exactly what human intelligence had predicted: shock, disbelief, and then immediate communication with the Galactic Council, warning that humanity had somehow weaponized entire worlds. Within hours, every major power in the galaxy knew that the species they had dismissed as extinct had returned with technology that challenged everything they thought they understood about warfare. Ben watched the tactical displays as Corthan, Empire scouts began shadowing New Olympus from what they thought was a safe distance. The alien ships were trying to gather intelligence about human capabilities, but they had no idea what they were really looking at. From their perspective, they were observing a planet that was somehow moving under its own power while maintaining perfect gravitational stability. Their instruments could not penetrate the advanced shielding that disguised the true nature of what humanity had built. Kate coordinated with the other planet ship commanders as they approached the Centauri Gate, the strategic choke point that controlled access to the galactic core worlds. Intelligence reports indicated that the Corthan Empire was assembling their most powerful battle fleet to intercept what they assumed was some kind of elaborate human bluff. 12,000 ships, including their flagship dreadnoughts, were moving to block the human advance. Amy ran final diagnostics on the surface-to-space combat systems that turned each planet into a 3-dimensional battlefield. Weapon emplacements the size of cities were hidden beneath artificial mountain ranges and fake ocean floors. Fighter launch bays had been carved into the sides of continents, each one capable of deploying squadrons larger than most alien fleets. The planets were not just carrying weapons, they had become weapons that could fight in ways no conventional fleet could match. The psychological warfare aspect was already working perfectly. Reports from alien intelligence networks described panic in the Galactic Council chambers as military analysts tried to calculate how humanity could have developed such technology in secret. The math simply did not work according to everything. The galaxy thought it knew about engineering and physics. Some alien scientists were questioning whether humans had made contact with some unknown alien technology, while others wondered if humanity had always been more advanced than they appeared. Tony established communication protocols with the approaching Corthan fleet, broadcasting on frequencies that would be picked up by every listening post in the sector. The message was designed to be heard not just by military commanders but by civilian populations across the galaxy. Humanity was returning to galactic politics, but they were not asking for permission or negotiating for territory. They were announcing their presence and demanding that aggressive species reconsider their actions. Ben coordinated the fighter wing deployments as New Olympus approached optimal combat range. The hangars built into converted ocean basins began opening, revealing fighter craft that had been designed specifically for planetary-scale warfare. Each fighter was connected to the planet ship's sensor networks, creating an intelligence web. that could track enemy movements across entire star systems. The pilots had trained in simulations based on every known alien ship design, and they were ready to demonstrate human superiority in small craft combat, as well as large-scale warfare. Kate watched as Terra's Fist's main weapon systems achieved full charge status. The mountain-sized cannon that ran through the planet's core was ready to fire, and the targeting computers had locked onto the largest ships in the Corthan fleet. The demonstration that was about to begin would show the galaxy exactly what human engineers had accomplished during their centuries of exile. More importantly, it would establish humanity's position as the dominant military force in the galaxy, a position they intended to use to bring peace rather than conquest. Amy's reading showed that all 7 planet ships were now within communication range of each other, their quantum networks creating a command structure that spanned light years. For the first time since the project began, humanity's hidden fleet was operating as a unified force. The Corthan Empire had assembled 12,000 ships to face what they thought were 7 unusual planets. They were about to discover that they had brought conventional weapons to fight opponents who had fundamentally redefined what warfare could be. The Battle of Centauri Gate was about to begin, and it would mark the end of the old galactic order and the beginning of humanity's return to the stars. Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he looked at the massive drilling platform that stretched across the horizon. The dead planet beneath his feet had once been called Kepler 442b by the old Earth scientists, but now his team simply called it Project 1. For 30 years, Jake had been leading the most secret engineering project in human history, and today they would finally break through to the planet's core. Lisa Hamilton checked her readings from the command center built into what used to be a mountain. The numbers on her screen showed that the gravitational scaffolding was holding perfectly. This technology was her creation, a way to hollow out entire planets without them collapsing under their own weight. The math had taken her 15 years to solve, but now humans could turn dead worlds into something the galaxy had never seen before. Rick Carter walked through the underground city that housed 50,000 workers and their families. These people had been born here, lived here, and would probably die here without ever seeing another world. They were building something that would change everything, but they did it in complete silence. No messages went out to the wider galaxy, no distress calls, no trade requests. As far as the rest of the universe knew, humans had simply vanished into the outer systems 300 years ago. The Galactic Council had stopped paying attention to humanity after the Third Contact War. The Zephyrians thought humans were too primitive to matter. The Corthan Empire considered them too weak to bother conquering. Even the peaceful Altarian Federation had written off humanity as a species that would probably go extinct within a few centuries. This dismissal was exactly what Jake and his team had been counting on. Deep beneath the planet's surface, massive machines carved out chambers the size of continents. These would become cities, factories, and weapon systems all rolled into one. The planet's core had been replaced with an artificial star that would power everything they built. Jake watched as his teams installed the first of the great engines that would eventually move this entire world through space like a giant ship. Lisa ran the calculations one more time. A planet this size, converted into a mobile weapons platform, would have firepower equal to 1,000 normal fleets. The weapons they were building into the surface could crack the crust of other worlds. The shields powered by their artificial star could absorb attacks that would destroy space stations. Most importantly, the planet could sustain itself forever, never needing supplies or support from outside. Rick coordinated with the other secret projects scattered across dozens of star systems. Each human colony that had fled to the outer rim was working on similar conversions. Some were turning asteroids into mobile fortresses. Others were converting moons into factory ships. But the 7 planet-sized projects were the crown jewels of human engineering. When they were finished, humanity would have weapons that could reshape the galaxy. The work was slow and dangerous. Converting a planet required technologies that pushed the limits of what was possible. Workers died in cave-ins when the gravitational scaffolding failed. Others were lost when experimental engines exploded during testing. But for every person who died, 10 more volunteered to take their place. They all understood what they were building and why it mattered. Jake remembered the reports from the Korthan invasion of the Meridian colonies. 12 billion peaceful aliens slaughtered because they refused to surrender their homeworld. The QE Galactic Council had done nothing except send a formal protest. That was when humanity realized they could never depend on others for protection. They would have to build their own strength in secret until they were powerful enough to make the galaxy listen. The alien races had advanced energy weapons and faster-than-light travel, but they thought small. Their biggest ships were maybe 10 kilometers long. Their most powerful weapons could destroy cities or small moons. None of them had ever imagined turning entire planets into weapons because none of them had the patience for such a massive project. Lisa watched as the first test firing of a surface cannon lit up the planet's night sky. The weapon was built into a converted mountain range and fired projectiles the size of buildings at speeds that would punch through any known armor. When all the surface weapons were online, this single planet would have more firepower than most galactic empires. Rick checked the population reports from the underground cities. 500 million humans now lived inside Project 1, with billions more scattered across the other conversion projects. These hidden populations had developed their own culture, their own technology, and their own ways of life. They were no longer the same species that had fled Earth centuries ago. They had become something new, something designed for war on a scale the galaxy had never seen. The artificial ecosystems were working perfectly. Vast underground forests processed the air while underground seas provided water and food. The humans living inside the converted planet had everything they needed to survive indefinitely. Even if the galaxy somehow discovered them and tried to lay siege, they could simply move to another star system and continue their work. Jake stood on the observation deck and looked out at the construction teams working on the planet's surface. Massive weapon emplacements were being disguised as natural rock formations. Shield generators the size of cities were being built into deep valleys. Launch bays for fighter craft were being carved into the sides of continents. When it was finished, this planet would look almost natural from space, right up until it started shooting. The communication came in from Project 7, the final planet ship in the secret fleet. Lisa read the message and smiled. All 7 projects would be completed within the same year. After 3 centuries of hiding and building, humanity would finally be ready to return to galactic politics. But they would not return as the weak refugees who had fled to the outer rim. They would return as the most powerful force the galaxy had ever seen. Rick began preparing the activation protocols that would wake up the other 6 planet ships when the time came. Each one was different, designed for specific types of warfare. Some were optimized for long-range bombardment. Others were built for close combat and planetary assault. Together, they would give humanity options that no other species could match. Jake looked at the countdown timer on his wall. In 6 months, the Korthan Empire would begin their next major invasion. Intelligence reports suggested they were planning to attack the peaceful Altarian colonies. When that happened, humanity would finally reveal what they had been building in the darkness between the stars. The galaxy was about to learn that the species they had forgotten had become something far more dangerous than anyone could have imagined.